After seeing the points of the peace plan that have been discussed since the end of November, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk aptly remarked, "We know that this is not about peace but about business." And indeed, at the end of the month, the Wall Street Journal published an article that could be called an information bomb, although in our region it went almost unnoticed. Insider information from the publication reveals a behind-the-scenes deal leading to the actual surrender of Ukraine and explains why Donald Trump is in such a hurry, giving Volodymyr Zelensky until Christmas to accept the so-called peace plan prepared by his administration. It is this article in the Wall Street Journal that allows us to see the true logic of what is happening. Let's read. Last month in Miami Beach, 3 influential businessmen, 2 Americans and 1 Russian, met to discuss how to end the prolonged war. However, according to sources, there was much more at stake. About a plan to pull the $2 trillion Russian economy out of crisis and to allow American companies access to Russian assets, giving them priority over European ones. Steve Witkoff, Kirill Dmitriev and Jared Kushner met at Witkoff's estate. Dmitriev proposed using about $300 billion of frozen Russian assets for joint investment projects, including the development of Arctic resources, claiming that there is no limit to what 2 longtime adversaries can achieve. I have a dream, like Martin Luther King, that every Russian soldier sitting in a trench would read this article or watch my video. Vladimir Putin has given so many speeches about how he is fighting for a multipolar world against Western hegemony. But it turns out that his appointed representative, Kirill Dmitriev, is offering Americans to split up $300 billion that belong to Russians, not counting reparations. Dmitriev is basically offering the main adversary investment projects that obviously won't be based on honest mutual benefit. The United States, fully aware of Russia's new vulnerable position, will seek the most favorable terms and super profits for themselves. For example, the Wall Street Journal article mentions Donald Trump's friend Stephen Lynch discussing buying Nord Stream 2. Lynch revealed he could purchase the pipeline for almost nothing, despite its estimated $11 billion construction cost. It's unclear what next to nothing means, but we now see why the investor and Trump's friend, who donated heavily to his campaign, is so confident. The deal to sell the gas pipeline is one of the topics that Witkoff, Dmitriev and Kushner discussed, just one of them. Here's what else the article says. Some of Putin's most trusted friends, billionaires from his native St. Petersburg who are under sanctions, Gennady Timchenko, Yuri Kovalchuk, and the Rotenberg brothers, Boris and Arkady, send their representatives for secret meetings with American companies to explore opportunities for deals in the rare earth elements and energy sectors, according to sources familiar with the meetings. In my new exclusive video, which will be released tomorrow on Patreon, YouTube membership, and in the private Telegram channel, I quote a professor from Moscow State University who hints that China is not giving Russia the support in the war that it could theoretically provide, and the reason is a lack of trust. Beijing is concerned that at some point Moscow might change its anti-Western course. If you watch the episode tomorrow, pay attention. In the article we're discussing, there's a vivid confirmation of the professor's words. Putin's billionaires and his loyal friends, who, by the way, don't own companies they personally created, but corporations that extract natural resources, which, in theory, belong to the people. Yes, everyone laughed here, though I avoid joking during the war. It just happened.
When Vladimir Putin became president, he forced the largest oil companies to export oil not directly, but through the offshore Swiss company Gunvor, which belongs to Timchenko. At some point, 30% of all Russian oil sold to the West, which is a huge amount, was going through this very intermediary company. It was taking a little bit of money from every barrel of oil that belonged to us.
For example, through Volga Group, Timchenko owns shares in companies like Novatek Gas, Sibur Petrochemicals, and in gas, oil and coal operations with the Rotenberg brothers. And these gentlemen, through their representatives, as we found out, are making some deals with the Americans. Does anyone know, is this what the so-called special military operation was started for? Or maybe Putin announced it for this reason? Let's read the article. During secret negotiations, ExxonMobil's senior vice president Neil Chapman met with the head of Rosneft, Igor Sechin, Putin's former personal secretary, in the Qatari capital, Doha, to discuss Exxon's return to a large-scale project in Sakhalin. investments in which were suspended after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The company Exxon, owned by billionaire Todd Boehly, who is a major sponsor of the Trump party, was considering acquiring assets belonging to Lukoil, the second largest oil producer in Russia. In October, the United States imposed sanctions against Lukoil to increase pressure on Moscow, which prompted the company to put its foreign assets up for sale. It might seem like there's nothing unusual about this. After all, they're just buying up assets that are already under sanctions. But there's one important detail here. The thing is, ExxonMobil will be able to acquire them for next to nothing again, since any buyer will need approval from the United States Treasury Department to close the deal. In fact, it will be the Americans who decide whom to grant such approval to. Simply put, the buyer could have no competition. It's like a collateral auction 2.0. After all, everything points to the fact that ExxonMobil will be the first to get permission, allowing it to acquire assets significantly below their real value, since it probably just won't have any alternatives. Overall, it's a great deal. There's only one very serious question here. When will they start making patches for Russian assault troops who are dying on an industrial scale near Pokrovsk with the words "for ExxonMobil" written on them? Alright, you can stylize the letter Z to fit the current Z realities. Just a heads up, the logo is patented. Only exclusive channel subscribers can use it. All links are in the description. Let's keep reading the Wall Street Journal article. According to sources familiar with the negotiations, businessmen close to the Kremlin, Timchenko, Kovalchuk, and Rotenberg, also offered Americans concessions for gas extraction in the Sea of Okhotsk and several other regions. They also discussed developing rare earth elements near Norilsk and in 6 Siberian regions. According to draft contracts reviewed by the Wall Street Journal, a college friend of Trump Jr. was negotiating to acquire 10% of a liquefied natural gas project in the Arctic from Novatek, Russia's second largest natural gas producer, which is partially owned by Timchenko, if the United States and the United Kingdom lift sanctions against it. In general, the point is clear. As Donald Tusk said, it's not about peace, it's about business. And here, you might think that I'm unhappy with Trump's plan because now American companies will be developing Russian natural resources. Like, what do I care who Timchenko will be pumping oil with if it brings peace? Let me assure you, if I knew for sure that this business deal would bring lasting peace to Ukraine, I'd get a Trump tattoo, but the problem is different. If for Trump this peace plan is a profitable business deal, for Putin it's just a convenient tool to carry out his main plan. What has the Kremlin gained from this special operation that Kirill Dmitriev is carrying out? America is drifting further away from Europe. In the old world, fears are growing that in the event of a war with Russia, they will have no support to rely on, which means they should vote for pro-Russian politicians. The Kremlin is avoiding sanctions and arms supplies. Zelensky faces ongoing political pressure. And if they also manage to force Kyiv to surrender territories, or more precisely, not just territories, but the most fortified cities in the Donetsk region, nothing will stop Putin, after taking up new positions, from announcing a special military operation 2.0 after some time, of course, once the Kyiv regime suddenly attacks the new Russian territories.
Last night, 2 Ukrainian military sabotage groups reached the border with the Russian Federation in the Luhansk region and from the territory of Mariupol. As a result of the battle involving our border guards, supported by the Russian Ministry of Defense, these 2 sabotage groups were destroyed.
Remember how, a day before the invasion, Federal Security Service head Bernikov said Ukraine's armed forces tried to seize Russia with 2 infantry fighting vehicles and armored personnel carriers? Analysts later easily proved it was a Russian armored personnel carrier painted in Ukrainian pixel camouflage. What if the Russian armed forces conduct a false flag operation after the Witkov-Dmitriev deal is signed? Will Mr. Trump investigate who restarted hostilities or blame Zelensky for allegedly trying to involve American troops in a distant Eastern European war? I have already stated this point many times. Trump's biggest gift to Vladimir Putin is giving him room to maneuver, which could cost the Kremlin dictator almost nothing. So what if he lets Americans have a concession at a few extraction enterprises? So you see, I'm not worried that Russia and the United States might restore economic ties and develop business. What scares me is that for Washington, a business deal is put at the forefront when it comes to promoting peace in Ukraine. Please, I ask you, rewatch this video of mine from July 2024 where I expressed concerns that Donald Trump's return to the White House would mean a shift from a state strategy to the logic of a New York realtor. But as we know, Vladimir Putin's approach hasn't changed and won't change.
I am not a president. I can say that the war will not end until we defeat Europe morally and politically, until the crazed European elites stop their next mad dash toward a world war. Let's hope they come to their senses before they take a heavy sin upon themselves by using weapons. Mass retaliation.
And this revelation from Sergei Karaganov, whom reputable publications call the ideologist of Russia's foreign policy, demonstrates the difference in approaches. Neither Trump nor us, ordinary people, can understand why start wars when you can make money instead. That's the logic of sane people, but the ones in the Kremlin aren't like that, and old Donnie doesn't want to understand this and probably can't. And this gives Putin a truly unique opportunity to carry out his plans and almost guarantee non-interference from the Western hegemon. The Trump administration, in its national security doctrine, stated, and I quote, "The European majority wants peace, but this desire is not reflected in policy, largely because their governments undermine democratic processes." In other words, in the United States national security doctrine, the lack of peace in Ukraine is essentially explained by Europe's position. Will Trump's America defend such a Europe? My answer is no. So, how could Putin not take advantage of the current situation? As I'm recording all this right now, you can't even imagine how much I want to be 1,000% wrong. How much I wish the war in Ukraine would end after signing the best deal in history, the Donald Trump deal. I wish the 47th United States president would be remembered as a peacemaker, winning not just one, but 10 Nobel Peace Prizes. But facts are stubborn. History shows peace with a dictator through business is impossible. Hitler, Stalin, Mao Zedong, the North Korean Kim dynasty, Mussolini and Ceausescu were never concerned with strong economies or good earnings in their countries. These people and Putin each have different priorities. So Europe, which in 4 years of war managed to dig 3 trenches, literally 3, with a total length of a few hundred meters, and stuck a few dozen concrete tank traps in the middle of a field just to show them to journalists, is making a grave mistake. Putin isn't interested in money, but Trump, unfortunately, is too attracted to it.
No, I can't imagine this. How can we seriously discuss Trump's business partner's deal? You know, it's a real estate deal to enrich Trump's family and sell Ukraine. And how can we seriously discuss that Ukraine will have to give up fortifications that are saving Europe? We're celebrating NATO, but NATO isn't strong or even real. It's fake. It's NATO, 4 letters. While you celebrate here, Ukraine is dying every minute. Putin, Xi Jinping, and others are celebrating too, thanks to Ukraine. Russia is not fulfilling Putin's dream of restoring a Russian empire, but if, God forbid, Ukraine is forced to make this deal, then it's very clear Putin will realize his dream. And then, guys, you are next, but you are not willing to fight.
Despite everything I've said in this video, I want to emphasize the most important thing. I strongly disagree with those who use the word capitulation when talking about the peace plan. More precisely, the business deal that Donald Trump is promoting for Ukraine. After all, everything will depend on what security guarantees are included in the final document, which in fact could take more than a year to negotiate. If it contains not just assurances, but actual commitments from the United States to defend the designated territory of Ukraine as if it were practically its own, I would call this a de facto defeat for Russia in the war, which has not led to the achievement of any strategic goals. Ukraine, on the other hand, if it truly receives full protection guarantees that rule out a repeat of the war, will preserve the most important thing, its sovereignty, which under the Kremlin's plan was meant to be destroyed. But the problem is that so far there are no signs that Washington is ready to provide such guarantees. An even more serious problem is that Putin would never approve them, and I think it's not hard to guess why he won't allow the United States to become a guarantor of Ukraine's security. All that's left is to watch which logic will prevail in Washington, commercial or strategic.